Alright, so if you clicked on this video, I suspect you sometimes have the feeling that there isn't enough time. That there is too much to do and not enough time to do it in. It's that constant pressure of an overflowing to-do list, or the anxiety of falling behind, or the late nights trying to catch up. Now, back in the day, I used to think that if I just found the perfect productivity system, or just worked a little bit harder, that I'd finally reach that mythical state where everything felt under control. But what if I told you that that feeling of never enough time is not a problem to solve necessarily, but a reality to accept? That is the central premise of this wonderful book, Meditations for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman, which is what we are discussing in this episode of Book Club, the ongoing series where for the last 5+ years, I've been distilling and discussing highlights and summaries from some of my favorite books. And by the way, if you don't know who I am, hello, my name is Ali. I'm a doctor turned entrepreneur, author of the New York Times bestseller, Feel Good Productivity. These days, my day job is that my wife and I are building the productivity apps that we would like to exist in the world. And on the side, I make YouTube videos on this channel where we discuss the books, strategies, ideas, and tools that can help us be more productive, live more intentionally, and ultimately build a life we love. I have reams and reams of highlights and notes from this book, but we're going to focus on 3 of them, so let's dive into key point number 1. You will never actually get on top of everything. And I'm going to read a little quote from the first chapter. And here he's telling the story of the teaching style of a Zen master. Her teaching style, she liked to say, was not to lighten the burden of the student, but to make it so heavy that he or she would put it down. Metaphorically speaking, lightening someone's burden means encouraging them to believe that, with sufficient effort, their struggles might be overcome. They might indeed find a way to feel like they're doing enough, or that they're competent enough, or that relationships are a piece of cake. Kennett's insight was that it can often be kinder and more effective to make their burden heavier, to help them see how totally irredeemable their situation is, thereby giving them permission to stop struggling. Oh, this is so good. This is absolutely sick. This is an insight that I have been trying to internalize for myself ever since I read Oliver's first book, 4,000 Weeks. Well, no, it wasn't his first book, but the first book of his that I read, 4,000 Weeks. It's the idea that we all simply have too much to do, and it is a fool's errand to think that we can ever get on top of everything. We will never have enough time to get through everything on our to-do list. There is always more we could be doing, and it's just impossible to make it all happen. And this is a profoundly liberating insight that I took away from this book. This is kind of the whole vibe throughout the whole book, throughout a lot of Oliver's writing. And I think that one area in which a lot of like self-help and productivity stuff, including mine, often goes amiss is by trying to tell you that you can do it all. It is possible. Of course, you can build a business while you're kind of doing your job alongside. And if you find ways to make it fun, it might even be a little bit easy, and you can have the system to make your content creation easier while building a personal brand. And while you're doing that, you can use this system to like keep track of all the things on your to-do list and blah, 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 blah. And that is all well and good. But at the same time, it is worth appreciating that even with all of that, it is never going to feel easy. It's never going to be all done. You will never get to the end of the day feeling as if, man, I've ticked off everything on my to-do list. And the benefit of all of that is, and then you get to relax. But you also get to accomplish more and to enjoy yourself more in the process, because you are no longer so busy denying the reality of your predicament, consciously or otherwise. When we realize that the burdens that we carry, that like this desire to do all of these things and to keep all of these balls juggled in the air and to be perfectly present as a partner and to be a perfectly present parent and to be like crushing it in the day job and to be building the side hustle and to be doing all the things while keeping on top of our health and while making sure we're meditating, like all of this shit that we are all trying to do. When we recognize that we're just never going to be able to do all of it, we can relax and be like, oh, okay then, well, it's impossible to do all of the stuff anyway, so I may as well just focus on the things that I really want to do and not worry too much about the other balls dropping to the floor, and just focus on relaxing and enjoying the process rather than struggling through with this like false narrative, this false belief that it is in fact possible to get on top of everything. Now, once you've embraced this idea that you cannot in fact do everything, one of the things you might actually genuinely like to do is start your own business. And if so, a great resource to use is Shopify, who are very kindly sponsoring this video. If you didn't know, Shopify is a wonderful commerce platform that allows you to start and grow and manage a business. Shopify powers entrepreneurs by giving you all the tools that you need to create your business wherever you are in the world and letting you sell stuff online or in person or across all major social media platforms with integrations for Google and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and many more. It's a fantastic way of starting your first business or your side hustle without needing to manage the operations that come with selling stuff online. I've personally used Shopify in the past with my own team to sell a stationery brand and a keyboard brand and also our own online courses. And so if you're interested in checking out Shopify, visit www.shopify.com/AliAbdaal, and that link, which is also in the video description, will let you sign up to a completely free trial of Shopify so that you can try it out and see if it vibes with you. So thank you so much, Shopify, for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. All right, now we come to key point number 2 that I took away from the book, which is that you don't actually have to do anything. And here I'm going to read a quote from chapter 3. At some point, as you seek to spend more of your finite existence in the ways that feel most meaningful to you, the thought will inevitably occur to you that you can't make a certain choice about your time, however much you'd like to, because the circumstances simply don't allow it. The obstacle could be as weighty as the belief that you can't walk away from a marriage or a dispiriting career because of the emotional or financial impact on yourself or on others. Or it might be as mundane as the notion that you can't spend half an hour on an exhilarating creative project today because there are too many emails to be answered or too many household chores that need completing first. These are all valid concerns, but the idea that they eliminate all room for choice isn't entirely correct. The truth, though it often makes people indignant to hear it, is that it's almost never literally the case that you have to meet a work deadline, honor a commitment, answer an email, fulfill a family obligation, or anything else. The astounding reality is that you're pretty much free to do whatever you like. You need only face the consequences. I'm going to read that again. The astounding reality is that you are pretty much free to do whatever you like. You need only face the consequences. Ah, yes, so good. You don't have to do anything. You just need to pay the price. You just need to face the consequences of the decision that you choose to make. This might seem just a little bit semantic. It's just like, we're just like doing a bit of wordplay here. But let's go on. Unless you're literally being physically coerced into doing something, the notion that you have to do it, in truth, means that you've chosen not to pay the price of refusing. Just as the notion that you absolutely can't do something means you are unwilling to pay the price of doing it. You could quit your job with no backup plan. You could book a one-way ticket to Rio de Janeiro, or rob a bank, or tell your social media followers your honest views. The conservative American economist Thomas Sowell summed things up with a bleakness I appreciate, insisting that there are no solutions, only trade-offs. The two questions at any moment of choice in life is what the price is and whether or not it's worth paying. This is good. This is good. Why do I like this point so much? I think it's so easy for us to think that we genuinely don't have a choice. And what this chapter tells us, and what Oliver's writing tells us, is that there's always a choice, unless you're literally being physically compelled to do something, which you're probably not if you're watching this video. So in that case, you've got a choice. You could choose to do the thing, or you could choose to not do the thing. Either way, you actually have a choice. You're just making that choice based on the price that you are willing to pay. This is something I've kind of noticed in myself. I've noticed it in a lot of other people that I speak to as well. We create these narratives around what we can do and what we can't do. I can't just quit my job. It's yeah, you can actually. It's just what are the consequences of you potentially quitting your job? And usually we make these consequences loom way larger in our minds than they actually are. Oh, quick thing. So this video only actually covers 3 of the key points that I took away from the book, but I've actually got 86 different highlights and a bunch more notes than could feasibly fit in this video. And so I've taken some of these extra highlights and written up some notes on this completely free study guide for the book. So if you're interested, there'll be a link in the video description to download that completely for free. By the way, if you like this video, you should definitely buy the book. It's actually sick. Laura Vanderkam, who has interviewed many working mothers for books on how to manage work and family life, frequently hears versions of the same refrain. I can't relax in the evening until the children's toys are tidied away. But the reality, of course, is that you absolutely can relax with the toys not tidied away. There is no 11 p.m. home inspection with someone coming around to see if all the toys are picked up, notes Vanderkam. You need only be willing to pay the price of relaxing in such circumstances, which is a less than pristine home. There's an elephant in the room here that can't be tidied away, of course, which is that the consequences of any given choice might be vastly more severe for some people than for others. This is, I think, a really, really, really important point. When he wrote this, I was like, yes, this perfectly addresses an objection I know so many people will have. There are those who'd get fired if they ignored a few emails or violently abused for a toy-strewn house. But these grossly unfair realities don't change the fact that each choice is always and only a matter of weighing the trade-offs. If a path you'd love to take is genuinely likely to leave you destitute or seriously harmed in some other way, then you probably shouldn't take it. But for most of us, if we're being honest with ourselves, the temptation is often to exaggerate potential consequences so as to spare ourselves the burden of making a bold choice. Here's another nice line, might be relevant to you as well. It's a particular peril among the progressive-minded, I've noticed, to take the fact that a given choice might be unfeasible for the underprivileged as a reason not to make it yourself. But unless it's you who's underprivileged, that's an alibi, not an argument. I love that. I sort of laughed out loud when I read that paragraph a few weeks ago when I first read this book. There are so many people I know who have told themselves the story, I can't just quit my job. And if you ask them why can't you just quit your job? They will say something like, well, I've got to put food on the table or whatever the thing is. They're okay, but you've got plenty of savings and you could your business is doing okay and you could always get another job if the business doesn't work out, etc., etc. So what's really the problem? And then they'll say some variation of, but some people can't just quit their jobs. Some people are literally on the poverty line, and if they quit their jobs, their families really would starve. Okay, Are you one of those people? Are you on the poverty line where if you quit your job, your family would literally starve? Probably not. If you're watching this video, probably not. Maybe you are, but probably not. And if you're like the average person who watches this channel, if you're like 100% of the people I speak to, probably not. Just because there are some people out there that don't have like a financial safety net from their parents or can just go home to live with a family or whatever the thing is, just because that's true for some people doesn't necessarily mean it's true for you. All right, next up we have key idea number 3 from chapter 14, which starts off with a nice Haitian proverb, beyond the mountains, more mountains. The author and podcast host Sam Harris recalls being at lunch with a friend, moaning on about the various problems he was confronting in his work, when she interrupted him mid-flow. "Were you really expecting to have no more problems at some point in your life?" she asked. Harris realized with a start that he had been subconsciously proceeding on the basis that such a time would eventually arrive. "I was tacitly assuming that I should be able to get rid of all my problems," he recalled later. "Even though this sounds ridiculous, that was implicit to my thinking and to my emotional life, to the way I was meeting each new problem." He's surely far from alone. I suspect that most of us, except perhaps the very Zen or the very elderly, move through our days with a similar, if largely unconscious assumption that at some point, maybe not soon but eventually, we'll make it to the phase of life which won't involve confronting an endless fusillade of things to deal with. Harris goes on to say that life is an unending series of complications, so it doesn't make sense to be surprised by the arrival of the next one. The magnitude of the problem might surprise you, but the fact that new complications in your life are arising hour by hour is absolutely to be expected. So for example, let's say you're like most people who watch this channel and you have a job that you don't particularly like. Oh, maybe you like it a little bit, but like you feel on a Monday night, you're like, I don't really want to go to work the next day or whatever. You might think that like the way to get over that series of problems related to your day job is to start your own business, right? Because fun, freedom, fulfillment, flexibility, financial abundance, all of the stuff. But what you're doing is you're swapping your 9-to-5 problems for another set of 24/7 problems when you start your own business. And then when you start your own business, it'll be like, oh shit, okay, cool. Right now I have problems in my business, but once I get a certain amount of revenue, then I'll be able to hire my first employee, and then I'll have a problem-free life because the employee will take care of the problems. And then you hire an employee and you realize, oh, now I deal with a whole different set of problems in that I'm now a manager and trying to manage someone and helping them do the stuff and thrive in the workplace, and then dealing with their problems as well. And then you think, well, maybe once I get to like, I don't know, 7 figures in revenue, I'll be able to hire a general manager who'll be the manager for the employees. And now you're dealing with the problem of having 7 figures of payroll. So you have to make £1 million a year to just break even before you even pay yourself anything. What you're doing in this whole process is you're swapping out one series of problems for another series of problems, and another, and another, and another, forever. What I love about this is like life will never be problem-free. There are always going to be problems that arise, and so given that we now know this, we don't need to be so surprised when they do arise. Oliver goes on to say, it takes only a little further reflection to see that we wouldn't really want life to be otherwise. It would be nice to be able to skip the scariest or most overwhelming problems, but to face no problems at all would leave you with nothing worth doing. So you might even say that coming up against your limitations and figuring out how to respond is precisely what makes a life meaningful and satisfying. There's a clue to be found in the leisure activities to which so many of us gravitate. After a workday spent resenting our problems, we play board games, or watch police dramas, or learn musical instruments, or try a hand at cooking new dishes, none of which would be any fun if it weren't for the problem solving involved. And so swiftly there comes an unclenching if I no longer have to fight against the sheer fact of encountering problems, because that's a battle I'll never win. I get to dive more fully, perhaps even with relish, into the problems I actually have. I am free to aspire not to a life without problems, but to a life of ever more interesting and absorbing ones. Oh, love that. Beyond the mountains, there are always more mountains, at least until you reach the final mountain before your time on Earth comes to an end. In the meantime, few things are more exhilarating than mountaineering. Oh, man, love it. That's great. That's actually great. No, problems are always going to arise, and that's okay. And so when they do arise, we don't need to clench so hard and like, huh, I'm so surprised that a problem arose. It's like, of course it was going to arise. Of course there's going to be problems. Like, what? Do we expect that we're going to have a life without problems? It's like, it's fine. Let's just go with it. Let's try and lean into the fact that this problem has arisen and see what we can do about it. Now, if you enjoyed the stuff in this video, you will definitely want to check out the book. It is very good. I'll link it down below. And if you're interested in some of the philosophies around time management that I learned during my time as a doctor, which actually do vibe with some of the stuff in this book and Oliver Burkeman's writing, check out this video over here, where I talk through the triage method of how to manage your time. And there are some comments on that video with people saying like, this is the best video you've ever made. So if you're interested, you should check it out over there. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.